see, I might have two questions, but they might be the same, actually. Oh, the other night I had a very different sort of experience of my body. It's hard to explain. And I kind of remember you, or I don't kind of, I remember you saying that the body and the world, was it the world or the universe, are in the same space? Or
they appear in the same space. I mean.
Appear in the same space. That's different. Are they the same?
Ultimately, they are made of the same stuff.
Okay. That's different than I had imagined. Okay. So then I do have two questions. The other question is, what is the mind?
Well, there is not one universally accepted definition of the word, of course. So I have my own definition, which applies only to what I say here, and I try to be consistent with that, although I'm not always consistent, and I'm going to explain why. Our human experience is comprised, has two sides, if you will. That which is perceived, which I call objects, and that which perceives, which I call consciousness. When we say I perceive the ball, we don't really perceive the ball, but we perceive our own perception of it. Meaning that you and I, for instance, we see two different balls because we see the same ball, but we see two different pictures of it. And these two pictures, they are not out there. Yours and mine, picture of the ball, right? They are in here. So even external objects like the ball, we perceive them inwardly in the form of mentations. So everything we perceive, in fact, is what I call mind. Mind is made of mentations. Mentation being either a sense perception or a bodily sensation or a thought. So that's what I call mind. Very simple. Now, sometimes that's the most general definition of mind. Sometimes I use mind in a more restricted sense, meaning thoughts, which in contradistinction with bodily sensations and external sense perceptions. But the general meaning of the word mind would be any and all the perceptions we have. So the mind is not that which perceives in this definition. It is something which is perceived. In fact, it is a concept that is a generic term for everything that we perceive. Because the mind itself, we never perceived our mind. We perceive only thoughts, sensations, etc. We have never seen our own mind.
Is it the perceiver? Or is that?
Now, what I call the perceiver would be what I call consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason why I make this distinction is that obviously mind, that which is perceived by a given individual, is limited. It has its limitations. Yeah. For instance, two minds are different, have different thoughts, right? And the thoughts of your mind have no access to the thoughts of my mind under normal circumstances. If you will, minds are separate from one another. They are limited and separate. But the reason why I make this distinction between mind and consciousness is because although minds are limited, human minds are limited and separate, that doesn't imply that the consciousness that perceives the mind has the same limitations and separation, or is subjected to the same limitations and to the same separation. So this leaves open the possibility that unlike mind, consciousness is universal, that we all share it. Because what is it that we call consciousness really, or awareness? It is, as we define it, as that which perceives, right? It is that which really perceives, right? Not that which supposedly or allegedly perceives. That which really perceives means the reality that perceives. In other words, our real nature, our real self, is that which truly does the perception. And that perception is going on is obvious, right? In this moment, perception is going on. We can tap dance around this issue whether there is consciousness or not as long as we want, but in this moment, consciousnessing, awareing, perceiving is going on, right? And so that's a very important element, that to recognize the reality of perceiving. That which you perceive may be an illusion. For instance, as we perceive our night dream, the content of the dream may be a pure illusion. However, perceiving itself is still real, right? It is perceiving a dream is as real as perceiving the waking state. Because it is the same perceiving agency which does the perceiving in both states, waking and dream. So there is a reality that perceives, you see? Because the perceiving is real, therefore there is a reality there. And then what is important is this: we all have the intuition that there is only one reality, you see? And therefore, the reality does the perceiving in us. If there is only one reality, must be this only one reality. And that is connected with consciousness, the reality that perceives in you, in me. If there is only one reality, it must be the same. Otherwise, there are two realities. There is one that perceives your mind and one that perceives this mind here. You see? Because either we say there are two consciousnesses, but they are not real. They are not the real perceiver at the end of the line, right? But if these two consciousnesses are the real perceiver at the end of the line, and if they are different, it means that there are two at least two realities. In fact, there are as many realities as there are minds.
External, is there an external reality? Are there...
Yeah, but external to what and internal to what, you see? If we talk about reality, even if we talk about more than one reality, if there are two realities, what is it that perceives these two realities, that experiences them? It must be a third reality which is independent of the two. Right? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It becomes very clumsy the moment we have more than one reality. That's why, even scientists, they have this deep intuition that there is only one reality, the laws of which they try to discover. So if we make this, if we trust this intuition that we have, that there is only one reality, and if we agree that consciousness is real, then consciousness must be this one reality. You see, that's very simple. And if consciousness is not the reality, and if consciousness is not universal, it must be that one of these two premises is false. Either that there is more than one reality, or that perceiving is an illusion, that there is no perceiving going on at all, which is hard to believe. Because in order to believe that, we have to perceive this belief. So that is the really, that consciousness is real, is such a direct experience for each of us that it is impossible to challenge. So the other element that can be challenged is the unicity of reality. In other words, the possibility that there is more than one reality, that there are as many realities as there are consciousnesses. The problem with that is that then, when a new sentient being is born, a new consciousness, in this case, gets created, right, according to this theory. But then, this consciousness is a reality of its own. Out of what gets this reality created, you see?
So that is part of, if I see that consciousness is aware, but is it also, it's also creative?
Yeah, but that creative, it is ultimately, because it is the reality of everything. It is creative and it is created, and it creates and is created by itself, if you will. It is beyond any objective description. But I was trying to go a little deeper into the possibility to envision the possibility of multiple realities, multiple consciousnesses. Mm-hmm. You see, then, when a new sentient being is born, a new consciousness comes into existence, right? But out of what? You see? Then if the claim is made that this consciousness comes out of the newly created brain, which is made of, then it is not a reality of its own. Then the reality of this consciousness is in the physicality of the brain. Now, which begs the question, what is the reality of the physicality of the brain? The brain is part of the universe, right? And the reality of the brain is the reality of the universe, whatever that is. It is the reality of the black holes, of the Big Bang, of the gravitational waves. of the multiverse, if there is such a thing, before and parallel to the Big Bang, whatever it is. I mean, it's huge, you see? And then there is only one reality, but it boils down to the same thing. If consciousness is really created by, dependent upon a larger reality, a universal reality, is it then correct to make the claim that this limited consciousness perceives? Is it not true that that which really perceives is the reality of this consciousness? And therefore that it is in fact the cosmos as a whole which perceives through each mind, so that each mind is a window through which the universe perceives itself in that sense. The important gap there, the important glimpse, is to the understanding that ultimately it is the universe that perceives. That which perceives in us, that which is hearing these words in this moment, is not as private and separate and limited as we believed it to be.
Because before you said that each mind was separate and didn't know the other was.
Each mind, yes, but remember that mind, in my book, means that which is perceived. It never means that which perceives.
But couldn't there be a larger mind that holds more than...
There could be, and then it doesn't change an iota to the fact that if there is only one reality, it must be the same reality, which is the reality of this larger mind, God's mind, for instance, and the reality of our human mind. So that's something we have in common with God, consciousness. Meister Eckhart says, the eyes through which I see God and the eyes through which God sees me is the same eye. He says also, before I was created, God and I were one in Godhead. So what he calls Godhead, Godheit, Godhead is in fact this ultimate reality. Which Eckhart and each of us share with God. It's interesting that in the Indian philosophies they have a distinction between this reality Brahman and God Ishvara.